They ever catch the person who committed this terrible crime? And went on to tell them that he'd received a voicemail from her at around 5 a.m. the morning after he'd last seen her.
He said
mean that Dawn had been killed in the 5 hours between Kevin receiving the voicemail from her and Darren. In earlier questioning, Dawn's boyfriend Kevin had told police that he'd gone looking for Dawn down by the River Lark the afternoon before she was found, as it was an area where they enjoyed walks together and was just a couple of miles from her home. But this was the same area that a witness had seen the Holdall and Burn site at 10 a.m. that day.
When we interviewed him, he said, in the truth, he must have seen the Holdall because he walked within 10 yards of it. And in front of her, where Dawn's boyfriend, and that's what she said, she didn't name the person, she said Dawn's boyfriend, was there carrying something like a roll of carpet or a huge big bag, and there was somebody at the other end of this. The person at the other end of the bag, who she didn't know, sort of looked in her direction, dropped the bag and then ran off. The person she describes as Dawn's boyfriend was stood there under a light, so in full view, and was stood there almost transfixed as the local resident drove then on by. Dawn's boyfriend and Dawn arguing outside Dawn's house. And this, I say, would have been later than Kevin initially said. This was, he said he last saw her about 9:30. Bear in mind, we'd got the initial report by the boyfriend that he left Dawn and it was all amicable.
Kevin's story was falling apart, and over the following weeks, more details about his obsessive behaviour came to light. One witness said she saw Kevin loitering outside Dawn's house and looking through her letterbox the afternoon before her body was found.
Well, if you look through Dawn's letterbox, you can't see anything. Behind it is a curtain, and the witness describes Kevin Nunn bopping down, looking through there. Now, this we found to be quite suspicious because Kevin would have known on any associates that he may have. Because we also got reports of somebody else being with Kevin, and Kevin, in fact, had going to Dawn's house and being seen entering Dawn's house with another man. So we were anxious to identify this person.
This person turned out to be a close friend and colleague of Dawn's. His fingerprints had been found at Dawn's house, and there was the possibility that he could have been the mystery figure helping Kevin Nunn with the large item into the back of a car. Kevin Nunn had been taken to Stowmarket Police Station, where he was interviewed by officers under caution about Dawn's murder.
Something happened Wednesday between you two. Goodness sakes, tell us what it was.
Nothing happened. Nothing happened. Regarding my witness, I was not harmed Dawn.
Kevin insisted that the last time he'd seen Dawn on the evening of the 2nd of February, it had ended on good terms.
It happened exactly as I said. There was no big argument, no fight. Like I said, we discussed things.
But detectives were suspicious of Kevin's version of events, especially the answer phone message that he claimed he'd received from Dawn early in the morning, the day after she'd last been seen alive.
His version of events didn't always marry, rung or messaged her, wasn't quite the same.
Police questioned Kevin about his movements in the days following Dawn's disappearance.
He said that he had in fact been in the house when she hadn't been there. Now, the other person was in fact saying, yes, he did go with Kevin Nunn to the house, but when we started closely examining their accounts, the timings weren't quite right. There were some subtle differences in their accounts of visits and the times of when this had happened.
The inconsistencies in Kevin's story were starting to show, but there were more revelations to come. Kevin admitted that while they were together, he'd had a key cut to Dawn's house without her knowledge.
I'm ashamed to say I had the key cut. I let her down, I let myself down. But that was the extent of it. And I'm ashamed about that. And it's not a good thing. It's something I have to come to terms with.
It's almost like he was trying to catch her out. So I suppose...
outside Dawn's house, and had uncovered details of Kevin's controlling nature and worrying behaviour. Dawn's work colleague, who had visited her house with Nunn, was also charged with assisting an offender. Early on in proceedings, the judge threw out the case against Dawn's colleague, citing insufficient evidence. But the trial against Nunn continued. The prosecution set out their case of how and why Kevin had killed Dawn. It was alleged that Kevin Nunn had murdered Dawn on the 2nd or 3rd of February 2005 after a row outside her house.
My view is maybe this discussion about he did not want Dawn to leave him, he wanted to carry on the relationships, and he was probably angry that this was going to happen and she was dumping him.
It appeared the motive for the killing lay in Kevin's personality. In police interview, he admitted not only to having a key cut to her house, but also to stalking her. Witnesses testified to the kind of man he was.
Ex-girlfriend Dawn at one stage, but it's certainly done.
It was alleged that Kevin then drove Dawn's body to the farm by the River Lark and set fire to her.
When he strapped her and putting petrol over her, I mean, was it...
Prosecutors set out that when Kevin presented himself as the concerned boyfriend, it was in fact all an act, and he was trying to deflect suspicion away from himself.
When she was missing, etc., he was going to...
The defence tried to blame one of Dawn's ex-boyfriends for the murder, claiming that Nunn had nothing to do with it, but the evidence was stacking up against him.
Obviously.
It's not often you see a murder investigation where there's been so much damage done to the victim. I mean, it's really unusual to have, if you like, almost...
In a rage inside of him, which he could take out on people.
The mystery figure seen assisting Nunn remains unidentified, and as Kevin still maintains his innocence, the case will never be closed for Dawn's family.